weekend. Our next keynote speaker is the first woman to coach in the NFL, having served as a coach for the Arizona Cardinals. Widely known as a trailblazer and pioneer in professional football, she also became the first woman to play running back in a men's professional football league, and she was also the first female coach in men's professional football. Prior to joining the world of men's professional football, she had a highly decorated 14-year career in women's professional football, earning 4 national championships and 2 gold medals as a member of Team USA in the International Federation of American Football Women's World Championship. To empower women through football, our next keynote speaker designed her signature program, A Day in the Life Camp, and she continues to create a range of camps for girls and women through her Gridiron Flag Football Camp, along with community initiatives like her Camp on the Corner program that brings football to youth in underserved areas. She's appeared as a guest NFL analyst on NBC, the NFL Network, and ESPN, and she was recognized as the United Nations as Sports Pioneer of the Year on Women's Entrepreneurship Day, and ESPNW recognized her as one of the 25 most influential women in sports. She holds a doctorate degree in psychology, a master's in sports psychology, and a bachelor's degree from Boston College. Please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. Jen Welter.
How's everybody doing? I heard this has been a fantastic weekend. You guys are just coming off of lunch though, huh? Yeah. So are we feeling sleepy? Do you have the itis? I mean, I know how that is. It's a very real thing. And I would feel remiss if I didn't at least give you guys a little some football. Because one reason why I love to open up football to women and girls is because when I started playing, the thing I heard about it is it was the final frontier for women in sports. And I kind of felt like, okay, so if we can do this, then that means there's nothing we can't do, right? Like that was my passion. It's not all about like football to me. It's about the empowerment that you get by breaking the rules, right? I used to think that the goal was moving the chains, right? Because that's what we do in football. We measure progress 10 yards at a time. We talk about moving the chains. One of the biggest visible things you see on the football field, everybody knows it. 1st and 10, do it again. Boom, boom, boom. Move those chains, move those chains. And then I thought about it one day. I was like, I don't want to freaking move the chains. I want to break the chains. Like, think about it. Because if you're moving the chains, then you're playing by somebody else's rules. When you decide that maybe, just maybe, the rules are meant to be broken because nobody's written the rules with us included as women in the past, that's when the potential gets really freaking exciting to me, right? So I challenge you that first and foremost when you're looking at the things that you're all going into. I love the age that you're in, right? This is an age of possibility. Look at the Parkland students, right? Oh, you're too young to make a difference. You're too this, you're too that. Forget that. I'm going to use one of my favorite phrases from that. I call BS. Because if they taught us anything, it's that by using your passion and owning your platform and realizing that there's never been a time like this to change things, then all of you become a very viable, very awesome, very hard to handle, unchained force to be reckoned with. Right? So that's what I want you to think of. Because I tell everybody, okay, the goal of being the first is cool. But the goal of being the first is to ensure that you're not the last. That was always my driving factor. I never wanted to be the one that they said, oh, well, we had a girl once, but. That I was the reason that they could use for closing the door tighter than it had even been before I got there. So for all of you, as you're looking to change whatever it is, in whatever that field of dreams of yours is, as you go forward, challenge yourself on that to go in, kick butt, and ensure that you're opening doors for people that weren't previously there. Because if it's you by yourself, you're being selfish. And not in a selfish way that benefits everybody. You have to look to be bigger, right? You have to look to push harder. So I'm going to give you a little football attitude, okay? So stand up. I need you all to stand up with me. I know. Okay, so in football, on offense, they know exactly what they're doing, right? They get a route, 2 steps, turn, boom. Defense, not the same. Defense, we have to read and react. So part of my job on defense was to get in everybody's head. I have a doctorate in psychology, happen to be one of the best athletes in the world. My job is to mess with minds for a living. So I look at defense as this opportunity to set the tone every time I step on the field. So for all of you, as you go into any meeting or any area of life, remember, you are the narrator, you're the narrator, editor, director, producer of your own life. And you set the tone every time you go in somewhere with everything that you do. So on defense, I was a linebacker, since we had to do a little bit of both, right? So I'm going to teach all of you a perfect linebacker stance, right? So you have to have a strong base. That's the first part. Strong base means you're a little bit more than shoulder width apart. As I say, 2 steps of attitude. You know, like 2 steps, 2 steps, 2 steps. So we're right here, boom, boom, 2 steps of attitude. Set the tone, right? If you're too wide, if you're too close, you can be easily knocked over. You have to take a stand, and when you do, you have to be strong in your stance. So we start with a strong stance. Good, solid base for everything that you want to do. Then I'm going to have you give a little bit of Superman. So we got a Superman, right like here. Stick your chest out, up and strong. Feel how you feel as soon as you embrace that. Feel the power in your stance, right? Do you feel the difference that just came over you as you did that? Superman, your chest is up, right? Now, leverage is important. If you're too high, you fly. Meaning if you're too straight up and down, you're too rigid, or your ego has kept you from being grounded, you're easily beaten, right? So the next thing you need to do is karate chop your hips, boom, right here, sitting back. Yeah? I know dresses are tough, that's why I'm stretchy. Right? But you're over a seat, so every one of you can do it. Now, your hands are ready to go. That's a perfect linebacker stance every time. You can move any direction, and you can tackle anything, right? So I want you guys to feel a little bit of that attitude and that willingness to be able to go out and tackle anything from today. Can you guys do that for me? Okay, go ahead and take a seat now that you have your football swag for the day. The linebacker attitude. But you see, it's all about the mood that you set, the tone that you set, and to realize on defense, I looked at it this way. They have a route to run, right? It's very robotic. They know what it is. If they're thinking about that, they're winning. If they're worried about me, they're not going to do what they have to do there. So remember that your competition, when you're in their head, you can own them. But you get to set the tone for who you are in every situation. Every time you take the field, whatever field that is, you get to determine the tone in everything that you do. From the first handshake that you have, from the eye contact that you make, from what you wear. Frankly, I like my sneakers. It allows me to run around, right? But I know myself that way. If I'm in heels, it's about a 1 hour window. And I have my chain shoes in my purse, right? Because I don't want to be cranky. I want to be able to run around. I'll look good, and I'll also have my sneakers somewhere close by. Maybe sandals, depending on how big the purse is, right? But that's what I want you guys to realize, right? There are so many things that people will tell you what's not possible. Guess what? At 5'2", yes, that's my top height, I was never told that I would be one of the best football players in the world one day. Newsflash, it never happened. In fact, I was constantly told what I couldn't, shouldn't, and wouldn't do. Thankfully, what I didn't do was listen, right? Because there will always be those people who have scar tissue on their heart, on their dreams, on their lives, right? And their advice, though maybe well-intentioned, is coming from a place of pain, a place of disappointment, a place of dreams that once were there for them, that for one reason or another, they didn't accomplish, had to get away from, or just sold and lost along the way. So remember that though you can take the advice, if it's worth it, don't let somebody else's scar tissue determine your potential. Because I can promise you, if I would have listened to that, I would never have made it to where I am. My first love was tennis. I wanted to be a professional tennis player, and I was really good. I was ranked about 50 in the state of Florida at one time. I had not yet reached my top height of 5'2". I was a scrawny little thing, like little tiny little beanpole, right? And I used to go in these matches, and I believed I could beat anybody. To characterize, though, I would tell you about one that I went on, and it was team tennis. We were at States playing team tennis, and I would walk on, and this girl was giant, well, relative to me, you know. She was probably like 5'10". And she looks down at me, and she said, "I hate to break it to you, little girl, but I think I'm going to crush you." And I just kind of looked at her, and I was like, After I beat her, I went up to her, and I was like, "I hate to break it to you, big girl, but I think I just crushed you." Right? I knew I was small, so I wasn't going to talk smack beforehand, but I let my play do my talking for me. It wasn't until I went to go to the next level of my sport that I came up with a coach who said, because of my size and my build, I was wasting my time. And I would never be strong enough to play pro tennis. Funny, I think about that guy often. I kind of want to go up to him and be like, "You know what, coach, I think you were right. I'd never be strong enough to play pro tennis. I played pro football instead." Yeah. But I tell you guys that because you will hear those things. Anybody who says you're not going to have those moments in your life isn't trying to do anything epic. Okay? If they could see what you saw, they would have already done it. That's how you change the game. You see things that nobody else has seen yet, or you put it together in a slightly different way, or you put your head down and you're so passionate about what it is that you love that it doesn't matter. The hours fly away. You work harder, not because somebody put you on a time clock, but because you're so in love with what you're doing. That's where greatness comes from. If you want to be great in this world, you have to follow your passion, not a paycheck. Because through your passion, through real, intense love of what you're doing, in whatever that is, you will work so hard. You will be so good. You will do epic things that everybody said was impossible. And then eventually, money will come. But if you just start with money in mind, you're going to sell out like most people do. And those people are the ones who have a midlife crisis. Right? See the guy with the comb over and the car and the man tan, maybe even a little mascara. Like he's trying really hard to get it back. Because he left that. When you start with your love in mind, you don't have to get to that point because you've been living that best life. Right? But that means you have to challenge things. That means you have to take a stance. That means you have to be willing to use your voice, use your talents, develop things that other people aren't doing. For me, I stopped playing tennis. It wasn't like I threw my racket down and quit that day. I just wasn't the same about it. If it wasn't possible at all, it was kind of like, eh. But one thing I did do is start lifting weights because I was determined to never have anybody tell me I'd never be strong enough again. And so here I was, this little kid who like didn't even know what I was doing, but I'm in the weight room. And this was before girls were in the weight room. I was by myself, but I was like, you know what? I'm never going to have anybody tell me I'm not strong enough again. And when you work with that in mind, then opportunities will come into your life that maybe you didn't foresee. I can promise you one thing. I didn't start playing football with the NFL in mind. The NFL was the no female league. There was no one I could look at and say, I want to be her when I grow up. So that was never a goal I could set. I remember when I got to the NFL, people would say it all the time. They'd be like, oh, you know, you're living the dream. You're coaching in the NFL. And I'd be like, actually, no. This was a dream I was never permitted to have because there was no one I could look at and say, I want to be her when I grow up. But the beauty of this is that now any little girl can grow up with that dream. And that's what changing the game is about. It's giving people permission to dream of things that were off limits. There were no-goes, no females allowed, or whatever diversity, whatever minority that you're talking about in any space. Because when somebody can look and say, she's like me, then she can see herself in your eyes. She can see yourself walking in your footsteps. You give people permission to dream through everything that you do. Whether you're the first one to go to college, the first one to do this, the first one to do that. It doesn't have to be a national platform to give permission to break the rules. To give people permission to not only move the chains, but to break them, to break out of those chains that have been holding us all back for so long, right? I went to college, I found rugby. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It was like soccer meets football. If you don't need freaking pads, I am all in. I played all 4 years. I was a prop, so I was really undersized. I was about half of everybody I was going up against. And when I got recruited for the under-23 national team, yet again, I was told, you are one of the best, but unfortunately, you're too small. I can teach other people to do what you do at this level, but I can't double your size. Yet again, I was crushed. I thought I had found the way to get back to where I was always meant to be. I always felt I was meant to be a professional athlete, and I thought I had gotten there. I was going to represent my country in rugby, and yet again, that door was slammed in my face. So I did what most of us would do, got a real job. Right? I had a business degree from Boston College, doubling in HR and marketing, and so I got a job as a headhunter. Funny, I went on to play linebacker, not that different. But I remember a point that was really important to me, and I hope you never get to this point, and if you do, I hope that this gives you a little courage. I remember telling my mom I felt like I was dying a little bit each day because there had to be something more in my life. I couldn't picture myself just doing this every day for the rest of my life. I was looking at the other people in this office and I'm going, no. No. And they had lots of money. I was making lots of money, more money than I made my entire football career. And I hated every minute of it. And I didn't like the person that I was. But I was still teaching aerobics before and after work, and I was playing flag football on weekends. Now, funny enough, I must tell you all, full disclosure, I was not a very good flag player. Coming from rugby, I had never really gotten the point that you're not supposed to tackle. Like, I never needed pads, so why do you? I mean, you're going fast, oops, you're on the ground. That also stopped the play. So the league, the team in Massachusetts, the general manager there, called the flag league that I was playing and said, do you have any girls playing flag who you think could play tackle? And I think that they were really relieved. since I never really got the whole flag thing anyway, I'm pretty sure the conversation was like, please take her. So I got an open tryout for the Mass Mutiny. This had been the sport that I had loved my whole life. I grew up in Vero Beach, Florida, where football was like a way of life, right? It was Friday Night Lights. That's what everybody did. And football was the first sport that somebody told me it's not for girls. That was the first moment in my life that I realized there was really a difference between what girls could do and what boys were supposed to do. And so to be able to come full circle and now make this team, I'm telling you what, the second I made that team, I knew I was stepping into my destiny. Hairs in the back of my neck, my arms. I was like, I'm doing this. And I made a very small, very big promise that day. The promise was this: I will step up to every challenge the game puts in my way. I had no freaking idea what I was getting myself into. I can promise you that. Right? It was a very little, very big promise. Because see, at that time, for a woman in football, there was no bigger dream than to win a Super Bowl. Right? Our version of Super Bowl, but still. And that's what I wanted to do. So in my 4th season with the Dallas Diamonds, I won my first Super Bowl. And I remember at the end of that season, we went 12-0. We got a ring and a check for $12. That's the reality of being a woman in football. You want to talk about equal pay for equal work? 78 cents on a dollar. Try one. Try one versus hundreds of thousands or millions. See, I look at the place where we can improve society the most, and I see sports because it's such a visible platform. It's something that we know is a meritocracy. If you can play, you can play. If you can't play, probably want to pick a different sport. But if we're on the same field, playing the same game, how are we worth $1? And yet I tell you that, and that check for $12 is still the most valuable check I've ever gotten in my life. You know why? Because it was the first time that we were actually getting paid to play football. Now we were truly able to say we were pro football players. Now, I always said pro instead of professional because I figured we couldn't afford all those letters. We might need a few more zeros before we went all the way to professional. But I could say that it was pro. And that check was so valuable to me that, that was before photo deposit. I'm showing my age a little bit. But that was a conscious choice back then. It was either cash it or keep it. So I kept it as a reminder of what I was playing for. I was playing for that. I was there for the right reasons. I wasn't there for the NFL. I was there because I literally felt like we as women were winning every time we took the field. It wasn't necessarily about the wins and losses, and thankfully I can say that because I was really freaking good and we won a lot. I might not have sounded so convincing if we didn't win so much. But really, that's what it was about. This was the final frontier for women in sports. If we could do this, we could do anything. That, to me, was worth all of the practices where we were finding a corner of a park and we were walking it before practice to check for needles or large rocks, where we were pulling our cars up to the side so that we would have lights so that we could go longer. That's not in the movies, just that. That was our real life. That's what it's like being the outsider sometimes. You have to be willing to go in the trenches. You have to be willing to work harder, to sacrifice, to do things that other people won't do. Because guess what? When you do that, and you do it consistently, and you do it for the right reasons, when the lights come on, you're ready. Woo! My women's football career made me better on every level. One of the reasons I love it, and I love football in general, Even if you're not a football fan, I want you to take one thing away from this game, that our society could do a whole lot better if we did it that way. When you look out on a football field, you can see it doesn't work if everybody looks the same. You need everything from straight muscle up front to straight hustle around the edges and a whole lot of crazy in the middle. I was in the middle. But literally, you need all of those things. People with very different skill sets, all working and sacrificing for each other. Realizing that everything that makes you different is actually what makes you very special on a football field. Playing for something bigger together. Using what you have and what you have and what you have, and coaches finding that very best in you. Not competing necessarily with the person next to you, but finding a way to accentuate what is very different in you and getting you to all work together for something that's bigger than yourself. Football gave me the most wonderful family in the world. As somebody who came from a very small family, I always wondered what that crazy big family reunion would be like. Well, now I have it. My football family is women and men who I've played with, played against, coached with, and coached against, domestically and abroad. And we are every make, model, shape, size, creed, color, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status. You want to find those areas in society that they use to divide us, and we use that to make us better. That's why I love football. That's the beauty of the game to me. If our society would take something away from football in terms of that, instead of getting mad at football players for stupid stuff, we would be in a whole lot better place. Because in football, truly, diversity is a strength. And it strengthened me as an individual. My friends are people I probably wouldn't have known outside football. Right? But we found each other in that place. And when you find that, hey, she can play, and that's your first thing, like, hey, this person's really good. And then you get to find out about each other and those details. You're like, wow, I never would have known that if we weren't here in this same locker room, in this situation where we're all in it together. And all we want to do is be the very best. Guess what? You get past those other things really quickly. And in the process of doing that, I became one of the best in the world for a really long time. Winning one Super Bowl wasn't enough. We went ahead and won 4. Right? In 5 years, the Dallas Diamonds won 4 Super Bowls. And in 2010, there was a new dream. For the very first time, there was a U.S. national team. We could play America's game in the red, white, and blue. And I was like, I'm doing that. And you know what that was? I made that team, and I get a call, which is one of the best calls I've ever gotten in my life. Congratulations, Jen Welter. You're one of the best football players in the U.S., and we would say arguably in the world. You and you're 44, so 45 of you will travel overseas to Stockholm, Sweden, to wear the red, white, and blue. Now, here's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to take a month off work and cut us a check for $3,000. Even in America's game, as a woman in it, you had to pay to play to represent the USA. Men's teams fully funded. Females had to pay. But you know what? None of us would have had it any other way. We didn't know it any other way. We were never entitled to have an easy path. So guess what? All right, let's do this. We went over, we won, we thought we'd change something. I really did. I thought we were going to come back and they'd be like, America's game, America's team, yay! You know what we got back? Crickets. We won gold, and still nobody knew we existed. There was no support for women in the final frontier. Again, in 2013, we did the same thing. 2nd gold medal. Call me crazy. I'm like, yeah, this time, crickets. In fact, I would argue nobody gave a damn about women playing against women in American football. What it took for people to actually pay attention to women playing football was for me to be willing to get tackled by men. You see, I never set out to play pro football against men. In fact, if you would have asked me in interviews, and it happened many times, I would never play football against men. I am 5'2", 130 pounds. I'm not crazy. Apparently God has this great sense of humor. Because there are certain things that you just can't walk away from. And this was one of them. I go into this meeting with this team called the Texas Revolution, and they wanted to meet with me, and I had no idea why. But I agreed. And I'm telling y'all what, I wore really tall shoes that day because I was going to be at least 5'4" when I walked in the door. So I go in, and there's this interesting dynamic, and you can't ignore some dynamics, especially not when you have a doctorate in psychology. The coach really doesn't want to be here. He is so mad about this meeting. You know, football coaches, they wear everything that they feel. It's like right there. He like looking at me like he just wants to run straight through me. Doesn't even really greet me. And I'm right here at a table. He's drawing in his non-existent playbook. It's like, if he doesn't make eye contact, maybe I'll just go away. Like if I don't see her, she doesn't exist. Meanwhile, across the table is the owner of the team. He is so excited to meet me. He looks like he's going to sell me a used car in an eggplant-colored suit. Kidding you not. Jane Welter, we are so excited that you're here today. We have this amazing idea. And I was like, I don't want to back away, but it's a good thing I'm sitting because I might be out of here. So we think it would be amazing if you would go through a day of training camp with our guys. And I was like, oh, so you mean you want me to like come in, go through a day of training camp, maybe run some ladders, catch some passes, smile for the camera? And he's like, yeah. Absolutely freaking out. As an athlete who just won my second gold medal, that's an insult. And if I was any one of your guys on your team, I would absolutely hate it. If you want me to do anything with you and your football team, either I do everything they do, step for step, hit for hit, for all of training camp, or I do nothing at all. And as soon as I said it, I knew two things without a shadow of a doubt. Number one, I was going to play football against men. I felt it. Same way I did when I made that first football team, except it was a little scarier. Hair on the back of your neck, you know, the bumps on your arms, and you're like, woo, okay, I just shifted the course of my life. Man, I might have gotten myself killed. Because this was a very real situation. But something else happened as soon as I said that. Tommy looked like I slapped him in the face with a frying pan. He was like, however, Coach Dub went from this. I just got a half smile, you know, a little bit of teeth. He might be snarling and want to eat me, or he might be kind of like, you know, couldn't really tell, but all right. I will give Tommy credit. He recovered rather quickly. I looked at Coach Dub, and he's like, Coach, do you think she'd be too much of a distraction if she went through all of training camp with the guys? Coach Dub looked at him, and he said, with an attitude like that, hell no. She'd be the best thing for this football team. She'd give these boys a kick in the head. But, and he looked at me and he said, every drill. Yes, coach. Step for step. Yes, coach. Hit for hit. Yeah. I don't think you're gonna make it. I don't know either, coach. One guy sidesteps you. I swear I'm gonna cut him. Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna tell him about it too. Yeah. Gotcha. If you sidestep one drill, I swear I'm gonna cut you. Yep. And one more thing. I'll see you take you tough. Great tackler. Can't do that here. You get run straight over. You want to play on this team, you're going to have to play running back for me. Coach, I don't do that. You want me to do exactly opposite everything that I'm good at? I'm actually a little bit more scared of playing running back than I am about playing against guys. It's the only way I can take you. I said, all right. Now, I knew that I might die. I'm not kidding. In the process of this, I knew it was a very real possibility that I may not get back up. But I also knew it was going to take something really drastic to finally change the game, to finally open it up for everyone who had loved football for a very long time. And what I might not have done for myself, in fact, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have, right? If it was just me, like I'm just going to go get hit by men every day for a season for no bigger purpose, not going to do it. But would I do it for every one of my sisters who I'd been fighting with for so long, that we'd been playing for $1 a game for so long, that we could win 2 gold medals and nobody cared? You're darn right I would. When you play for something bigger than yourself, it gives you courage beyond what you would have for yourself, right? When there is a bigger purpose or a higher calling, whatever that is, sometimes that's really where strength comes from. Because for me, like I said, I didn't have a death wish. I had an intense desire to change everything. And if I had to die in the process for everyone I loved, that I would do. So when you look at the decisions that you have in your life, realize that when you're doing things for something that's not just you, you'll have the courage to do things that you don't think you're enough for. Because I went to one of my best friends on the team. I actually went to 2 of them, both who were running backs, both who were better on the offensive side of the ball. And I remember telling them that I thought they should take this opportunity instead of me. And one of my best friends looked at me and she goes, Welter, you can't hand off your destiny. You'll be put in positions for a reason in your life. The goal is to step up and take them, especially when you don't feel like you're ready. Because here's a big difference between women and men, and there's a ton of research on this. Women will over-prepare before they will go to take a promotion. They will actually self-select out of things that they are probably just as capable as their male counterparts for. You could go through a checklist. You might have 10 things on the checklist. Got it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Dang. 10. I do not have a penis. And they'll say, no, I won't do it. Men, on the other hand, will look at a job description. I have a reality show. I think I could be president. To change things, we're going to have to step up into things that we're not necessarily feeling like we're all the way ready for. Okay? I would not have gone into coaching. I would not. I did not feel ready. After I finished not only training camp, but staying with the Texas Revolution for the entire season. That's right. I was with them the whole season, getting hit every day. I decided I was not doing that again. I survived. I did more than you ever thought possible. I'm good. And I met the new head coach of the team the following year. Now, I ran into a bunch of my guys. We became really close in a situation that we probably shouldn't have, right? Nobody thought we'd be that close, but we were. And we formed great relationships. So when I run into them, they pick me up, toss me around like football, because relative to them, I am one. And it catches the attention of the new head coach, right? So he sits me down. He starts grilling me about football, this, that, and the other. Now, I think I'm done, so I have nothing to lose. So I tell him all the way the truth, right? Get up. Here's my number. Talk to you later. I'm good. The next day he calls me and he says, all my defensive coordinator and I could talk about last night in our car ride home was how you had to coach this football team. And I said, no. I said, excuse me? I said, no, I don't want to coach football. Women don't coach football. I'm good. I said, not a lot of guys are going to give you this opportunity. You're taking this job. And I said, no, and I hung up on him. The next day he called me back and he told me about myself. He said, do you remember how I told you not a lot of guys were going to give you this opportunity? You were taking this job? And I said, yeah. He said, good. I took it for you. You're coaching for me. And by the way, you can't quit. Otherwise, the entire narrative surrounding women coaching and men's professional football will be, we had a girl once and she quit. Boy, oh boy, I'm telling you what, did he have my number. But I lovingly say he saw something in me before I even saw it in myself. Wendell drop-kicked me into success. And ladies, sometimes we need to do that for each other, encourage each other past our comfort zones, and don't be your own worst enemy. Start being your own best coach. Because coaches are ones who typically push you in ways that you never even thought possible. And we need to find more people like that to ride with, because that's how we'll change things. The last story I'm going to tell you is how I actually got to the Arizona Cardinals. And I'm running over. I was going to do questions, but I think if I didn't tell you this part, you would feel a little bit left high and dry. When Sarah Thomas was announced as the first full-time ref in NFL history, a reporter asked in a press conference. She asked Bruce Arians, she or he, I don't remember, asked Bruce Arians if he could ever see a female coaching in the NFL. Now, Bruce Arians is a different kind of football coach because he'll actually tell you the truth. And everybody knows it about him. And his response was, the second a woman proves that she can make these guys better, she'll be hired. So I heard about it. I got on the Arizona Cardinals website. I looked up the number. And I called the Arizona Cardinals on behalf of myself, as if I wasn't myself. You see, being a female athlete is a full-time job. You got to have like 47 of them. You know, it's a full-time hustle, 47 jobs. And on that day, I invented a new one. I was not an assistant coach. I was an assistant to the head coach. And I was calling on behalf of him, and I worked my way assistant to tell Bruce Arians' assistant that although it was not the NFL, there was already a female coaching in men's professional football, and my head coach wanted Bruce to know. And a few weeks later, now I thought I had gotten blown off that day. I'm not going to lie. I left him my number, but, you know, I kind of thought I got blown off. But I was really proud of myself that I called an NFL team. I was like, whoa, that was dope. I called the Cardinals. And about a few weeks later, I walk into practice, and my head coach is larger than life. He said, you will never guess who I talked to yesterday. Coach, I'm sleepy. It's like 5 a.m. I have no idea. He said it was Bruce Arians. And Bruce said, tell me about this girl. Y'all, you never know what that one step out of your comfort zone can accomplish. I didn't set out to make history. I was a kid who was told I was too small to play tennis. But there's something in being undersized. There's something in seeing something in yourself that other people don't. There's a relentless fire in some of you that don't you dare let it get quenched. I see so many people and they say, thank you for giving me permission to dream again. And you guys are young enough. Don't let anybody take that from you. Please promise yourselves in a time like this that you have the power to change the narrative. You have the power to break the chains of society that have held us back for so long. Embrace that power and use it in the way that you work, whether it's narratives that you write, books that you read, stories that you share, really that all of that collective power is something that you own. And if you're not using your influence in a positive way, shame on you. I look at the questions that people have about our society now, or where it's going, or they question your generation. And I get mad. But you know what? You guys are the ones who can change that, not me. I can continue to tell the stories, I can push the envelope, and I do every day. But you know what I get a lot of the times? Well, you're not an influencer like Kim Kardashian. Oh, I'm sorry, I just made history like several times, but I didn't make a sex tape, so I don't know what to tell you. And I say that in a very real way because, guys, you're the ones who determine where influence comes from. You get to push those envelopes. You get to say, this is who I want to see, this is who I want to be like, this is what I want to read, this is what I want my generation to stand for. And if you're not doing that, then you're not doing yourself or anyone else the justice that you can do, because you are a force. Women should be seen and not heard, right? Again, I call BS. That is the way that society has traditionally ruled us. I used to love when they'd say that women in the Renaissance used to pass out all the time. They were wearing corsets. We couldn't even breathe. But think about the restrictions that society has placed on us in the past. And if you're not willing to make a better future, then they're going to continue to demean your generation. And it ticks me off because you are full of bright, beautiful, wonderful power and potential that you get to choose who you want to be and who you want to influence the future.
Guess we have time for 2 questions. You went up first. I got you. And you have a great book in your hand. If y'all haven't read that book yet, I suggest you do. Shameless plug. Hi.
And a little bit different than some of you guys. I'm going to be a virtual teacher this year, a specialist in elementary school. And last year I was an assistant girls basketball coach, and this year I am the head girls softball coach in high school. So
Awesome.
my question is, I'm 23, young. What advice would you give to those who are entering those leadership roles at such a young age and not feel intimidated by those who are? But still show respect for your elders.
So the best advice I got when going to the NFL, and this is a talk I actually give most often, but I really wanted you guys to feel the grit of the journey, was to be 100% authentic. And it was from a good friend of mine, Terry Glenn, right? Here I'm going into a situation where nobody's like me, right? There was not another girl I could say, I'm going to coach like her, right? And the other coaches were like giant dudes. So like, you know, I mean, I couldn't coach like them, like yell at the player, like, because I've been yelling at their belly button, ineffective. So I took Terry Glenn's advice to heart. He literally said, if you are the same person that you were with us every single day, those guys will absolutely love you. But if you're fake in any way, they will sense it and they will eat you alive. So at any time where I doubted how to coach, because I couldn't necessarily be one of them, right? Or wasn't sure what I should do or say, that was what I went back to. Because authenticity reaches people, right? we want people who are real with us, and especially young people. I know nothing pisses y'all off more than somebody who just talks at you, right? Oh, well, you know, I'm just going to give you a little piece of advice, young lady. Pat me on the forehead, right? What they want to know is that you're real, right? And that you're consistent with them in that. So whether it's you are consistent about your practice methodologies, right? Hey, one kid's late, this is what we're all going to do, right? Or in who you are and how you lead, right? Like in your, if you say, for example, in coaching, I mean, this is really big. The consistency is like, oh, you know, effort is the most important thing, right? And then you lose and you're like, oh, you guys are worthless. Okay, well, how about that effort? Right? Because if you lose that core, you'll lose them. And with most coaches, it's the same way. It took a while to get some of those guys. They didn't know what to think. But when I was consistent with them, and I also didn't try and talk every moment to try and prove that I knew something, that actually moved a lot of them. And you find a way that you can move the needle in your way, right? Like I remember one of my guys, Kevin Minter, said, he was asked, what was it that surprised you about Coach Jen? You know, because you had a female coach for the first time. And he said, you know, he was like, was there anything you were worried about kind of thing? And he was like, well, I don't know that it was a female coach. But, you know, most first-year coaches, they just talk all the time. It's like they're trying to prove that they belong. You ever had those? It's like the Chihuahua mentality. Like, look at me, look at me, look at me. Like, I have a Chihuahua. I love him. But, you know, like everything is like, and there's so much noise and chaos that you can't really differentiate what's of value. And he said, she never did that. She was so relaxed and easy, like I could tell she had done this before. And my philosophy was like, I'm just going to tell you what will help you. And when I help you, you're going to want more of that. So though you're young, that doesn't mean that you have to prove anything to anyone. What you have to do is be good and be consistent and be authentic. And it may take people a little while to come around, but when you do those things, they'll come around for the right reasons and you'll have longevity and respect. Yeah? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Emily. I'm a recent graduate.
Hey, Emily.
Hi. And I was thinking about when John McEnroe used to acknowledge Serena Williams as...
Say that again?
I was thinking about when John McEnroe refused to acknowledge Serena Williams as the best female tennis player because of her gender. He kind of said something like, if she were playing against men, she would be like 500 or something. And I was wondering, how do you respond to comments like that as a fellow female professional athlete? And how do you respond without sinking to their level? How do you say it in a tactful way? How do you enter the conversation without further angering the other side?
Okay, in case y'all haven't seen this yet, my approach is a lot of humor, right? Okay, I had a fail-safe in training camp because there are going to be moments, and with guys like, first of all, I am a woman who's for women, but not at the expense of men, right? Because we're not fighting against you. Okay, we shouldn't be. Okay, all of my biggest breaks in my career came from men. Because if there's a locked door, picture this, no windows, only one door, locked from the inside, and there's only dudes inside, guess what has to happen? Dude has to open the door, right? So I have become very good at dealing with men. Now, what does that mean? It means some of the statements that they say are disconnect between brain and mouth. And some of them are really, this person is just not for women. But if you freak out over every statement, then you lose the ability to form a relationship and to even educate them, right? Then they're like, whoa, crazy woman, and they just walk away. So I had this fail-safe in training camp, and I actually use it in my life all the time. And
the guys would laugh because they'd be like, nothing phases Coach Jen. Like, she'll just like look you in the face, like smile, even if she knows she hates you. Right? I used to do that as a player too. I would blow kisses to people on the sidelines. I like, oh, I love you, coach, as they was telling me I hate your face. Because really, you're only giving them power if you give them power. Okay, those statements are meant to break you down. Okay, she's the best in the world. That's not even up for argument. You're giving him power if it upsets you. But when those statements would happen, like for me, I would look at him and I'd be like, oh my gosh, do you realize you just said that out loud? And a good guy who didn't really mean anything by it, and it's maybe not even a guy, could be somebody in lots of culturally awkward situations, right? Somebody maybe doesn't know your culture and they said something and you know it's over the line, but it wasn't necessarily intentionally mean, it was just not so smart. It works very well because the people who actually had good intentions or didn't really realize it, they'll be like, oh my gosh, no, we're good. Like, I would always be like, no, we're good. I'm just suggesting when the rest of the world is in the conversation, you probably never say that again, ever. And then you have this chance, right? Because if the person continues to say horrible things, then you know that the intention was probably there. But you drew your line in the sand of right? And the good ones will get better. The bad ones, you'll know it because they keep going in, right? But your choice is the power that you give to any statement. I remember when I was playing on the men's team, and my way, by the way, of dealing with like really critical social media and trolls and all of that stuff was just not to listen, right? Like, because the truth is that on a lot of it, either you would feel like you were the coolest person on the planet, or like you'd be curled up under a desk in the corner, like sucking your thumb, right? If you're going to give power to it. But there was one statement I heard that a friend sent to me, and she was like, I just couldn't resist, and she sent it to me. And it was like, oh, she's going to play football against men, and she's going to get hit and die and or get pregnant. And it was so terrible that I actually found it really funny. And so when I'm going into all these awkward interviews where, you know, they want to catch you saying something or make it like whatever, they'd be like, oh, you know, so the fans' opinions. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I have the best story for you. Let me just take this there. Like, I got one for you. Don't even go there. And I'd be like, so, you know, I had this one guy, and he posted that like I was going to get hit and die and or get pregnant. And I just couldn't even help it because I was one of the best linebackers in the world for a really long time. And I hit people really hard, but I did not know it was possible to hit somebody so hard that I could cause immaculate conception and death. They don't have anything to say after that. So when you use what they're using against you, against them, and you don't invest power in them, you're winning, right? You don't have to give them power. I remember I had a lady, and you guys will all get this because you're bright and you're strong-willed. I had this woman, and she said, what do you do in a meeting when a guy tells you you're tough? And I said, say thank you. And she goes, but no, I mean, I know that he meant it as an insult, so what do you do? And I said, thank you so much. Because he's not going to come back and be like, actually, that was an insult. So you're diffusing the power dynamic by how you respond. Remember, bullies only get their high when they get to you. You don't have to give them the response that they're looking for. And the beautiful thing is that if you're in a room with people who get it like you do, here's what happens. You're like, oh man, you know, I really hate her shoes. Like, don't you hate her shoes? And you're like, no, rude. Oh, I really hate her shoes. Do you hate her shoes? No, you're a jerk. You really hate her? No. Guess what they do? They stop talking. And that, women, is something that we have to be better about. if nobody has somebody to go to and be a bee to, they will stop. The mean girling has to stop. I get told all the time, well, you know, women have to support women. I'm like, yeah, and women have to stop being so freaking mean to each other too. And you also have to let the grudges go. Okay, see, here's one of the places where guys typically kick women's butts, and it's literally like they will get into a fist fight. Boom, got a knock to the jaw. Oh, man. Later, they'll be at the bar with a beer on the jaw and be like, yo, dog, you really got me with that one. Want to teach me how you did that? Yeah. Meanwhile, girls will, like, you know, have worn somebody else's outfit wrong, and they'll be still talking about it at a reunion 30 years later. Get over it. Have a short memory. Get better and talk about it. Address it, because misses in communication do nothing for anyone. Okay? Woo!